thank you for inviting me. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. It's my sixth or seventh time here. I've been to the Sanskrit department and spoken once in the philosophy department, R.P. Singh's, English department. Once we had this science congress. So several times. And Kapil Kapoor also invited me. So each one is a little different. And I'm delighted to talk on this subject of decolonizing. I called it decolonizing JNU and the rest of the academy, because we always have to. People ask me what should I do, so I always say you first apply it to yourself. Each one has to. We have to decolonize ourselves, and the organization, institution we are in. Then we can talk about to other people. So decolonizing requires understanding what is colonization. And colonization is not just, sovereignty being usurped by some foreign power. And so it's not that British left and gave us sovereignty and so we are decolonized. That is one level. There is also a whole ideological colonization. Ideological paradigms, vocabularies, language. We're using a colonial language now. All these are part of the colonial mindset, mental colonization. And then there is the colonial mindset and ideologies get taught to leaders. Human resource gets developed. Thinkers, scholars, NGOs, activists, politicians, all these kind of people get developed. So the second part is that this ideology is put into human resource training. And so a lot of people who are colonized emerge. The ideology by itself will just sit there, but you have to put it in minds of people. And then third is institutions, which replicate this, pass it on from generation to generation. So this kind of decolonization hasn't gone away. This kind of colonization hasn't gone away. In fact, I will argue that it's getting worse. And the colonization, which was British-based, has shifted to American-based more and more. Can you hear me? Okay, maybe I have to be closer. Okay. So this morning, I was at the NDTV. There was a show being recorded, which is called We the People, and this will be viewed tomorrow in the evening. And this episode, I was there with many other people. This episode is about NGOs, especially foreign-funded NGOs, and that has to do with colonization. It's very interesting that the majority of the people speaking, one or two of them were from the NGOs and Greenpeace and so on, but many of the people speaking were saying that there's no colonization, this is how we want, and Lord Meghnad Desai, Member of Parliament in the House of Lords in Britain, saying that British Parliament carrying out hearings and investigating what is happening in India is part of the globalization, why should you be afraid? So I had to, after hearing it a few times, I had to tell him that with all due respects to the British Parliament, and you are a member of that, but the point is we've been decolonized for a while, at least sovereignty-wise, and we don't need that advice. And the British Parliament is not elected by Indians, and it is not, the people are not appointed by Indians. They're not accountable to Indians. They're accountable to their own citizens. And so why would we foolishly go there and try to get them to rescue us from problems? So the whole idea that they are like Ma-Baap who are going to look after us and our NGOs going running there is a sign of colonization. So the ideologies that these NGOs represent, which are all formulated somewhere else, whether it is climate, whether it is human rights, whether it is, what should be your nuclear policy, all of these things, they tend to be from somewhere else. They're not Indian. And when they talk about globalization, that is all globalization, I mentioned that there is no Africa represented, no African voice represented in these global NGOs. There's no African point of view or Latin American point of view. There are no globalized Indian NGOs. The NGOs tend to be a very Western phenomenon to kind of create a non-governmental way of entry and influence young people all over the world. Now, there's nothing wrong in many of the causes, and many of the NGOs are perfectly fine, but there has to be some due diligence, some scrutiny which has not happened. So that is a major part of colonization. This is the
Hello.
home of
Hello.
Ramila Thapar. So I will have to say that part of decolonization has to be
Hello.
decolonizing from
Hello,
Ramila
Mr. Hello.
Thapar, Irfan Habib and people like that. Because they have done a
Hello.
lot of
Hello.
damage
Hello.
in the way history was written. Until then,
Hello. Hello.
R.C. Majumdar wrote History of
Hello.
India, multiple volumes after independence. That became very important to get rid of British writings and put new writings. But this lasted for only a while. And then, especially during the Indira Gandhi era, it was very important for Indira Gandhi's vote bank politics to pander to various communities and give them a sense of separateness, sense of being victims, sense that the rest of the country had been bad to them, they need to be looked after. So this vote banking and fragmentation politics starts. And these historians lend their academic and intellectual minds to this project. And so this is very dangerous, and this has been going on. It's getting worse. It hasn't. There's no sign to stop it.